Are you ready to see what it's really like to retire and live off your investments? Well, then buckle up, Buttercup, because that's exactly what we're going to go over today. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach, and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. I am using the percentage of portfolio withdrawal strategy. And what that means is that I'm making my asset withdrawal based on what the current value of my portfolio is. I am not basing it on my initial withdrawal from my portfolio when I first started making withdrawals. That means that I am not using the constant dollar strategy. The constant dollar withdrawal strategy is the one that everyone talks about when they talk about the 4% withdrawal rule or when they talk about the Trinity study. That is where you base your withdrawals on your starting portfolio value and then you adjust upwards for inflation every single year. So I am not doing that strategy. Instead, I'm doing the percentage of portfolio strategy. And it happens to be that my plan is to use 3% of my portfolio per year and not 4%. Why, you might ask? The first reason is that 4% was originally designed to be for around 30 years of withdrawals. The original Trinity study, they looked at 30-year periods, and that's usually because if you enter retirement, let's say at age 60, and you expect to live a long and healthy life till about age 90, then that would be 30 years of asset withdrawals. And you had a very, very high likelihood of not running out of money if you used 4% and you adjusted upwards for inflation. However, I retired at age 27. And if I live to that same age of 90, then I have, as you can tell, a lot more than 30 years to make those asset withdrawals. One way that I can increase the likelihood of my investments never running out is by starting with a lower withdrawal rate. And that's the second reason why I personally chose 3%. I may not have needed to go all the way down to 3%. A lot of people have done the math, a lot of the calculators that you check online, you could probably get away with about 3.5% in perpetuity, which means that you could probably withdraw around 3.5% and adjust upwards for inflation, and it most likely will last a very, very, very long time. However, I still only chose 3% because I actually want my investments to grow over time, even if I am making asset withdrawals from them. And the primary reason for that is that I'm not sure that I want to maintain the same exact lifestyle forever. A lot of things can and will change in my life over the next couple of years, so I want to remain flexible by starting out with a lower withdrawal rate and potentially still allowing my investments to grow over time. And the third main reason why I'm using 3% instead of 4% is that I have a very aggressive asset allocation mix. So my portfolio, from what I'm making my withdrawals from, is a 100% stock portfolio. And the 100% stock portfolio is the most aggressive portfolio of all of the different scenarios you can use when you're calculating the 4% withdrawal rule. Because it was originally based on a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks and 40% bonds. It can also work with the 80% stocks and 20% bonds. It had a higher likelihood of succeeding. But the 100% stocks, because it has such a high standard deviation, it can go up and down in value so much, it works better to have a lower withdrawal rate if you're going to have such an aggressive asset allocation. So here is how it works with the percentage of portfolio withdrawal strategy that I'm using. You could either take your portfolio, look at it once per year, and make one withdrawal per year. That would probably be the simplest way to do it. So if your investments were $500,000, you could take 3% of that, and whatever that number is, that is how much you make your asset withdrawal. And then next year, you would look and see, okay, what is my portfolio value right now? I'm about to make this withdrawal, take 3% of that and do it again. And you could do that every single year. Or here's another way that I personally prefer to do right now, and that is to take monthly withdrawals rather than one annual withdrawal. And the reason why I prefer to do the monthly withdrawals rather than one annual withdrawal right now is that it is almost like reverse dollar cost averaging. So you know what dollar cost averaging is, right? So you put a certain amount of money in every single month, and your investments, you buy it no matter what it costs. And so you're going to get an average price of those investments over time, like let's say over a 1-year time period when you're buying those investments. Well, this is the reverse of that. Instead of selling all of my investments all at once, 3% per year, I can do 3% per year divided by 12, which happens to be 0.25% per month. So I can take whatever my investments happen to be valued at that time, once per month, and multiply it by 0.25%. And that is the amount that I can withdraw per month. And I think that this could be slightly more optimal because you are using reverse dollar cost averaging. Now, I'm not opposed to doing one withdrawal per year. I may actually do that in the future, but this is currently what my plan is, to do 0.25% per month, which equals out to 3% per year. Now, really quick, you might be wondering to yourself, like, how am I living off of, I guess, only this amount of assets, right? It's not really that much of a withdrawal per month. How am I living off of that? Well, part of that is being very frugal in a very smart way. And I have a whole nother video on that, which I want to share with you at the end of this video. But getting back to the asset withdrawals, let me give you a concrete example here, right? Because everyone likes, concrete example with real numbers. Let's say that my net worth currently is valued at $750,000, and that's my total net worth, all of my assets minus all of my liabilities. Well, I'm not going to base my asset withdrawal on my net worth, because when you're talking about creating a withdrawal strategy for your retirement, you don't want to use your actual regular net worth. No, what you want to use is your liquid net worth, or your liquid investment net worth, because that is what the original 4% withdrawal rule is based off of. Your portfolio, your actual investment portfolio. So you're going to subtract all the other assets that aren't included. Like you're going to subtract the value of your home, the value of your car, any kind of cash in your bank account, because those are not going to be included in your liquid net worth that you're using for your withdrawal rate. So let's say that my net worth was $750,000, but the stock and bond portion of my portfolio is $550,000. That is the amount that we're going to be using to base what our withdrawal rate is. And that's what I do. So if my liquid investment portfolio is currently valued at $550,000 and I want to make monthly withdrawals of 0.25%, then I would take $550,000, multiply that by 0.25%. And in this case, it comes out to $1,375 of an asset withdrawal for that month. And by the way, I put a lot of effort, research, and heart every time I make one of these videos. And I would really appreciate it if you just took a quick second and hit the like button on this video. It really does help me out, and I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Now let's take a look at the general benefits and drawbacks of the percentage of portfolio withdrawal strategy. The first drawback is that you need to keep in mind that your budget needs to be somewhat flexible. And that's because your withdrawal is going to be based on whatever your portfolio is valued at the time that you make your withdrawals. That means it could be a little bit more or it could be a little bit less. So your budget might need to be an average of that. It might need to be a little bit flexible because sometimes you might withdraw a little bit less and sometimes you'll be able to withdraw a little bit more. Now, a positive of this method is that there is a very high likelihood that your portfolio balance is actually going to grow over time, especially if you're using 3%. If you run these numbers through any kind of financial independence calculator and you use 3%, then you have a very, very high likelihood of ending up with a lot more money than what you started with. Another way that you can make this strategy more realistic is you can set minimum withdrawals and maximum withdrawals. Okay, so these are going to actually allow you to have a more stable amount of withdrawals from your portfolio while also being a little bit flexible. So let's say that you had that $550,000, right? And you withdraw 0.25% per month. That was $1,375. You could say, hey, my minimum, I'm gonna need at least $1,200. So let's say 1 month your investment portfolio is not doing very well. Instead of withdrawing only 0.25% of that value, you can withdraw a minimum amount. So instead of $1,375, let's say your minimum was $1,200. Regardless of what your portfolio does in value temporarily, you're gonna withdraw at least $1,200. And then the same can be said with a maximum. Let's say your baseline was $1,375, but you're like, well, I'm not gonna withdraw more than $1,500 per month. And so even if your investments are doing really, really well 1 month, you're gonna limit your withdrawal to $1,500. So you can set minimum and maximums. That will allow you to have some flexibility in the amount that you withdraw, while also not having vastly different amounts of withdrawals per month. And now that you know about that strategy, this leads me to the big question here. I wanna know from you in the comments below. What do you think of this strategy overall? What do you think about my strategy for withdrawing my investments in early retirement? Do you think it's a good idea, good strategy, bad strategy? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. And like I mentioned earlier, I am on a pretty frugal budget overall. And if you wanna know how I do that while still living a really great life, I have the video for you, okay? It's gonna pop up right here on the screen. I'll put it in the description and a linked comment below. So definitely check out that video if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashFlow.com, and I hope to see you next time. Now let's take a look at some of the general drawbacks. And you still have actually a pretty high likelihood of